Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai who fought over 60 duels and never lost, wasn't just a warrior. He was a master of the mind. His philosophy teaches that focus is not about fighting distractions, but mastering yourself. In a world full of noise, Musashi's discipline, silence, and clarity cut through like a sword. These are the 7 ways of the samurai, lessons that will help you stay centered, sharp, and unbreakable in any battle of life. Live by discipline, not motivation, was a principle that defined every breath of Miyamoto Musashi's existence. He knew that motivation is fleeting. It burns brightly for a moment and then fades, while discipline endures like stone. A warrior cannot wait to feel inspired before drawing his sword. The path of mastery demands action even when the spirit is weary and the world feels heavy. Musashi believed that those who depend on motivation will never reach greatness because their actions rise and fall with emotion. True strength comes from doing what must be done, regardless of how one feels. Musashi's life was a constant test of this truth. He lived without luxury, without comfort, and without rest. He trained in solitude for years, facing the cold, hunger, and exhaustion, yet he never stopped. His discipline was unbreakable because it was not tied to mood or reward. Each day was a battle against weakness, and he won by persistence. He wrote that a warrior must think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. This meant serving a higher purpose than personal desire. Discipline, for Musashi, was a way of aligning action with principle rather than pleasure. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the fire that continues to burn when the wind blows. Musashi understood that waiting for the right feeling is the same as surrendering to laziness. In battle, hesitation means death. In life, it means mediocrity. A disciplined person does not ask whether they feel ready. They act, trusting that action itself will create momentum. Musashi practiced swordsmanship, strategy, and art with the same intensity every day. He saw no difference between training for war and carving a sculpture because both required presence, patience, and mastery. His consistency turned ordinary effort into extraordinary power. Discipline also brings freedom. It might appear as restriction, but it liberates the mind from indecision and doubt. When actions are guided by a clear routine, the noise of choice disappears. Musashi followed his own strict code, not because someone forced him to, but because discipline gave him control over himself. He knew that the man who cannot command his own body and mind is not truly free. Every repetition, every sacrifice, every moment of restraint was a step toward mastery. In modern life, this truth remains the same. Discipline is not punishment. It is preparation for greatness. Musashi's discipline extended beyond the physical. It was mental and spiritual. He disciplined his thoughts to remain clear, his emotions to remain calm, and his intentions to remain pure. He avoided distractions, fame, and comfort, knowing that these things weaken focus. His life was simple but precise, every action deliberate. Discipline gave him direction and protected him from chaos. He was never at the mercy of external forces because he had mastered the internal. To live with such control requires the courage to face monotony, to repeat small actions every day until they shape who you become. Through discipline, Musashi achieved harmony between mind and body. His every movement carried purpose because it was built on years of repetition and restraint. He did not seek easy victories. He sought refinement. Modern people often mistake excitement for progress, but Musashi teaches that the real growth happens in silence, in the moments when no one is watching. Discipline is the invisible force that turns effort into excellence. It is what keeps the musician practicing scales, the athlete training before dawn, and the thinker studying in solitude. Musashi's entire philosophy can be seen as a declaration of discipline over desire. He lived and died by it. His victories were not the result of luck or bursts of passion, but of years of relentless practice. Discipline made him unshakable in battle and peaceful in spirit. To live by discipline is to choose the harder path every day, not because it is pleasant, but because it leads to mastery. Motivation may start the journey, but only discipline finishes it. Musashi proved through his life that when the fire of motivation dies, the light of discipline must continue to guide the way. Clarity of purpose is the root of all focus. Miyamoto Musashi understood that before a warrior even draws his sword, he must first conquer confusion within his own mind. Without purpose, even the sharpest blade is useless. A samurai's strength does not come from his weapon, but from the unshakable clarity behind every strike. Musashi believed that if a person acts without understanding why they act, they are already defeated. Every motion, every thought, and every decision must align with a clear intention. In this alignment, distractions fall away and power gathers naturally. When you have a clear purpose, the mind becomes like still water. It reflects truth, not illusion. Musashi's life was filled with chaos, yet his inner focus remained unbroken because he always knew what he was fighting for. His duels were not acts of anger or ego. They were expressions of discipline and mastery. In the modern world, the same principle applies. People often move fast but without direction. They chase goals they don't understand, imitate others, and lose themselves in comparison. Musashi's clarity teaches us to pause, question, and return to what truly matters. The samurai way is not about doing more, but doing only what is necessary. Musashi once wrote that you must never do anything useless. This simple line contains profound wisdom. To live with clarity means stripping away what is unnecessary. Unnecessary words, unnecessary emotions, unnecessary desires. When you remove clutter, your mind sharpens. Focus becomes effortless because there is nothing left to scatter your attention. The sword of the mind must be as precise as the sword of steel. Clarity of purpose also builds resilience. When you know why you are walking a path, obstacles become part of the journey rather than reasons to quit. Musashi's life was full of hardship, poverty, rejection, endless battles, yet he never drifted from his purpose. He used every challenge to strengthen his resolve. A clear purpose turns pain into practice and failure into fuel. It transforms doubt into direction. Without clarity, struggle feels meaningless. With it, every struggle becomes sacred. In Musashi's philosophy, purpose is not something external. It is not about fame, approval, or victory. It comes from within, from knowing your principles and standing by them even when the world tests you. A true samurai does not need applause to act with honor. His purpose is carved deep in his spirit. This inner alignment gives him power that no enemy can steal. The same applies in modern life. Clarity gives you independence. It frees you from being controlled by trends, opinions, or fear. When you have clarity, you move with calm certainty while others hesitate. Clarity also brings peace. Musashi saw that confusion breeds suffering. When the mind is torn between options, it wastes energy. But when it knows its direction, even the hardest road feels simple. A person with purpose does not overthink every step. They just move forward. Musashi's every duel was decided before it began because his intention was already clear. In this stillness of mind, the body moves without hesitation. The heart beats without fear. To live like Musashi is to cultivate that same stillness. Before you act, ask yourself why. Before you speak, ask if it serves your purpose. Before you fight, ask if it is worth your spirit. Over time, this practice builds a quiet strength. The world may pull you in 1,000 directions, but your center remains unmoved. Musashi's clarity of purpose teaches that true focus is not about forcing the mind to stay still. It is about knowing exactly where you stand and where you are going. When that truth becomes unshakable, nothing can distract you, and even in chaos, you move like water, guided by purpose alone. Mastery through repetition was one of the deepest truths in Miyamoto Musashi's life and philosophy. He understood that greatness is not born in moments of inspiration, but in endless hours of disciplined repetition. Every swing of his sword, every stance he practiced, was a step toward perfection. He did not believe in talent as something mystical. He believed in effort repeated with precision. For Musashi, repetition was not dull or mechanical. It was a sacred act, a form of meditation where the mind and body fused into one. Through repetition, the samurai built instinct so sharp that in battle, he did not need to think. He simply moved, and the movement was flawless. In Musashi's world, repetition meant mastery of both the sword and the self. He trained in isolation, often for years, refining every motion until it became pure instinct. He taught that a warrior should practice so deeply that when the moment of action comes, there is no hesitation, no fear, and no doubt. The sword moves not by thought but by truth. This level of mastery cannot be achieved by occasional effort. It requires total dedication. In modern life, this principle applies to any skill, dream, or discipline. You cannot reach mastery by doing something once in a while. The difference between the amateur and the master is not talent, but repetition with intention. Repetition also builds mental endurance. Musashi knew that the mind resists monotony. It seeks comfort, variety, and distraction. But the path of mastery demands the opposite. doing the same thing again and again until excellence becomes your nature. Each repetition, though small, sharpens focus and patience. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes natural. Musashi's strength came not from aggression or speed, but from the quiet persistence that repetition creates. His movements were efficient because he had eliminated every wasteful motion through thousands of hours of deliberate practice. The key to Musashi's repetition was awareness. Blind repetition leads nowhere. He emphasized being fully present in each motion, observing every detail and learning from every mistake. Each cut, each strike was a lesson. He did not seek perfection from the start. He sought understanding through repetition. Every failure was feedback, every small improvement a step closer to mastery. In this way, repetition becomes not a prison but liberation, because with each round, the mind grows sharper and the spirit calmer. Repetition also destroys fear. When you have practiced something thousands of times, uncertainty disappears. Musashi entered duels with absolute confidence not because he was fearless by nature, but because repetition had made fear irrelevant. He had already lived the moment so many times in training that the real battle felt familiar. In any field, this same truth holds. The more you practice, the less fear controls you. Confidence is not built through words but through repetition. Musashi's life reminds us that repetition is not about perfection. It is about transformation. The process itself changes you. It carves away weakness, impatience, and ego. Over time, what remains is clarity and strength. Modern people often quit when progress feels slow, but Musashi teaches that the invisible work is the most powerful. Each unseen repetition builds the foundation for the moment of mastery that others call genius. The genius is not born. He is built, repetition by repetition. To follow Musashi's path means to fall in love with the process. The repetition that others find boring becomes your meditation, your rhythm, your silence. You no longer count the hours because the act itself becomes its own reward. Through repetition, Musashi found harmony between the mind, body, and spirit. In every swing of his sword, he was not fighting an opponent. He was shaping himself. Mastery through repetition is not only about skill. It is about becoming the kind of person who never stops refining, never stops learning, and never stops growing. This is the way of the samurai, to practice until your art and your soul are one. Calm in chaos was at the heart of Miyamoto Musashi's way of life. In a world defined by violence and uncertainty, he understood that true strength is not found in aggression but in stillness. On the battlefield, where fear and confusion ruled others, Musashi stood like a mountain, unshaken, controlled, silent. He knew that panic clouds judgment and a clouded mind cannot see the path to victory. The one who remains calm sees clearly. He can read his opponent's movement, anticipate danger, and strike with precision. Musashi's calmness was not weakness. It was the foundation of his power. From an early age, Musashi faced chaos. He fought duels to the death, often outnumbered or outmatched, yet he survived them all. His composure was not natural. It was built through discipline. He trained himself to detach from fear, to control his breathing, and to center his mind even when facing mortal danger. He once wrote that you must keep your mind on the way and do not let your mind be distracted. This was his secret, the ability to remain inwardly still while the world moved violently around him. Calmness for Musashi was not a reaction but a choice, a deliberate act of power. In life, chaos is inevitable. It appears as conflict, failure, loss, or uncertainty. Most people crumble under pressure because they react emotionally. They try to fight chaos with more chaos, rushing, panicking, or forcing control. Musashi teaches a different path. When everything around you becomes loud, you must become quiet. When others lose focus, you must slow down. Calmness allows you to act, not react. It gives you the clarity to see what others miss. The warrior who can keep calm while the enemy rages holds the advantage long before the first strike. Musashi's calmness came from his mastery of presence. He trained his mind to exist fully in the moment, neither trapped by the past nor anxious about the future. This presence turned fear into focus. When a samurai draws his sword, there is no time to think, only to act. To hesitate is to die. Only a calm mind can act without hesitation. Musashi practiced meditation, not as escape, but as training for battle. He believed that stillness in the mind creates swiftness in action. The quieter you become inside, the faster and more accurate your response becomes. This lesson extends far beyond combat. In modern life, chaos often takes the form of stress, deadlines, and emotional storms. Musashi's teaching reminds us that the solution is not to eliminate chaos, but to master our response to it. The calm person does not deny the storm. He becomes the eye of it. He moves deliberately, makes clear decisions, and maintains balance when others fall apart. Calmness is a discipline that protects focus. It allows you to see patterns, understand timing, and sense opportunity even in difficulty. Musashi's calm was also deeply connected to detachment. He understood that fear comes from attachment to victory, pride, comfort, or life itself. When you let go of these attachments, fear loses its grip. The samurai accepted death before stepping into battle, and in doing so, he became invincible. This acceptance freed his mind from anxiety, allowing pure focus. In everyday life, calmness comes from the same place: acceptance. When you accept uncertainty, you stop fighting what you cannot control and start mastering what you can. To be calm in chaos is to carry stillness within you, no matter the storm outside. Musashi lived by this truth until his last breath. His calmness was not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. He felt fear but did not obey it. He saw danger but did not panic. This level of control made him unstoppable. True calmness, as Musashi taught, is not about escaping the noise of life. It is about finding silence within yourself so that no chaos can disturb your clarity. When your mind remains still while the world shakes, you become unbreakable, like the warrior who stands alone in the storm and yet remains untouched. Detach from emotion was one of Miyamoto Musashi's most profound disciplines. He understood that a warrior's greatest enemy is not the opponent in front of him, but the emotions within him. Anger, fear, pride, and doubt cloud judgment, slow reactions, and lead to mistakes. Musashi believed that to see truth clearly, the mind must be free from emotional disturbance. The samurai's goal was not to suppress emotion, but to master it, to let it exist without letting it command. In battle, emotions are like waves. If you chase them, they pull you under. Only stillness allows you to stand above them. Musashi lived a life filled with conflict, yet he was known for his calm, detached demeanor. He fought more than 60 duels, many to the death, and never lost control. His detachment was not coldness. It was awareness. He trained himself to observe emotion as it rose, to recognize it without reacting. When rage or fear tried to take over, he let it pass like a shadow. This level of control gave him clarity that others lacked. A fighter ruled by anger strikes blindly. One ruled by fear hesitates. Musashi struck only when it was necessary, guided not by impulse but by perception. In his writings, Musashi warned that emotion leads to imbalance. He described the mind as a mirror. It reflects truth when calm, but when disturbed, it distorts reality. The emotional person sees enemies where there are none and overlooks danger where it hides. Detachment clears the mirror. It allows the warrior to see things as they are, not as he wishes them to be. In this way, detachment becomes not indifference, but precision. It is the ability to act according to reason, not reaction. In daily life, this lesson remains timeless. Modern people are often prisoners of emotion, reacting instantly to frustration, insult, or fear. They make choices in anger and regret them later. Musashi's wisdom teaches that emotion is natural, but discipline decides what happens next. You cannot stop emotions from arising, but you can stop them from ruling you. The more detached you become, the freer you are. Detachment does not mean you feel nothing. It means you choose your response with awareness instead of impulse. Musashi also understood that pride is a dangerous emotion. He often said that arrogance blinds a man faster than fear. Many warriors died because they fought to prove themselves, not because the fight was necessary. Musashi's victories came from humility and focus. He cared nothing for fame or recognition. His only goal was mastery. Detachment from ego gave him the ability to adapt, to learn from defeat, and to evolve. He saw every experience as a lesson rather than a judgment. That mindset made him unstoppable. This emotional detachment also connects to peace. When you no longer cling to how things should be, you accept life as it is. Musashi believed that attachment to desire or outcome creates suffering. The samurai who obsesses over winning already loses his balance, but the one who fights with clarity and calmness holds power even in defeat. To detach is to trust the process, to do your best without being enslaved by results. It is a quiet strength that keeps you centered no matter what happens. Musashi's detachment was not isolation from humanity, but mastery over himself. He interacted with others, experienced loss, and faced danger, yet his inner state remained undisturbed. His strength came from his ability to see emotion as a passing cloud, not the sky itself. This mindset can transform anyone's life. When you stop reacting to every emotional wave, you begin to act with purpose. Detachment gives you the power to listen, to think, and to move with precision even when the world provokes you. It turns chaos into clarity and weakness into control. To live as Musashi did is to rise above emotional storms, not by resisting them but by understanding them. The calm mind sees truth. The emotional mind sees illusion. Detachment allows you to choose the higher path, one guided by awareness, not reaction. When emotions no longer rule your thoughts, you become the master of your own fate, just as Musashi was on every battlefield of his life. See the unseen was one of the most mystical and profound lessons Miyamoto Musashi taught. To him, the art of perception was more powerful than the sword itself. He believed that a warrior must develop the ability to sense truth beyond the surface, to read movement, intention, and energy before they fully reveal themselves. Seeing the unseen meant understanding the world not only through the eyes but through awareness. Musashi's victories were not achieved by brute strength alone, but by his ability to perceive patterns invisible to others. He once wrote that the spirit of strategy is found in the mind that can see what cannot be seen. It was this deep insight that made him invincible. Musashi trained his mind to observe not just what was visible but what was hidden beneath. In combat, this meant noticing the subtle shifts in an opponent's posture, the hesitation in their breathing, the rhythm of their steps. He could sense an attack before it began. This perception came from total focus, a mind so present that nothing escaped its awareness. To see the unseen, Musashi emptied his mind of distraction, fear, and judgment. He allowed reality to reveal itself as it truly was. His awareness became like water, fluid, reflective, and limitless. Through this clarity, he could anticipate rather than react, and this anticipation gave him mastery. Beyond battle, Musashi's idea of seeing the unseen was also spiritual. It was about perceiving the truth of life itself, understanding that beneath appearances lies a deeper order. Most people see only what is obvious: success or failure, victory or defeat, friend or enemy. Musashi taught that the wise see beyond dualities. They look deeper, past the noise of emotion and the illusion of control. Seeing the unseen means recognizing hidden opportunities within chaos, strength within struggle, and lessons within loss. This kind of vision cannot be taught through words. It must be cultivated through experience, silence, and introspection. Musashi's insight came from his lifelong discipline. The more he trained, the quieter his mind became. In that silence, he began to perceive what others overlooked: timing, energy, and intent. He often said that strategy is not just about technique, but about timing. The person who can see one moment ahead holds the power to decide the outcome. This awareness goes beyond intellect. It is intuition sharpened by observation. To see the unseen is to move in harmony with reality instead of resisting it. It is to understand the rhythm of life and act at the exact moment when others hesitate. In modern life, this wisdom remains deeply relevant. Seeing the unseen means developing awareness in a world that is full of distraction. Most people look but do not see. They hear but do not listen. Musashi's philosophy urges us to slow down, to pay attention, and to look beyond appearances. The unseen truth might be a hidden pattern in our habits, a subtle shift in a relationship, or an opportunity disguised as difficulty. The one who learns to perceive these things moves ahead of others, not through luck but through awareness. Musashi's ability to see the unseen was rooted in detachment. When the mind is not clouded by emotion or desire, it perceives clearly. A mind that wants too much sees only what it wishes to see. A still mind sees what truly is. This clarity turns confusion into understanding and fear into strategy. Musashi became one with his surroundings, his sword, and his opponent. He saw everything as connected, and because of that, nothing surprised him. His mastery of perception made him seem supernatural. But it was only the result of deep awareness. To see the unseen is to trust your intuition, to listen to the silence between sounds, and to understand that truth often hides beneath simplicity. Musashi's life teaches that true vision is not about sharper eyes, but a quieter mind. When you learn to see the unseen, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming a master of it. The world reveals its secrets only to those who are still enough to notice them, just as Musashi did on every battlefield. Not through force, but through perception that pierced beyond what the eye could see. Miyamoto Musashi's life was more than the story of a warrior. It was the story of a mind forged in clarity, discipline, and awareness. His teachings go far beyond battle. They are lessons for anyone seeking mastery over themselves. Through clarity of purpose, he taught us to act with intention. Through repetition, he revealed that consistency builds power. Through calmness in chaos, he showed that true control begins within. By detaching from emotion, he freed the mind from confusion. By living through discipline, he demonstrated that greatness is built in silence, not in bursts of motivation. And through seeing the unseen, he opened the path to wisdom that transcends the limits of ordinary sight. Musashi's way reminds us that focus is not a gift, but a skill, one shaped through effort, patience, and balance. His philosophy turns the noise of the world into stillness and transforms struggle into strength. To live like the samurai is to live with purpose, to train with dedication, and to walk through life with eyes open to what others cannot see. When you embody these 7 samurai ways, you do not just survive the battles of life, you move through them with grace, power, and unshakable peace.